Welcome to Bamfordrose and another question of the week. Before we get into this question of the week, it really helps us if you can subscribe to our channel, click us a like and give us your comments on this week's question of the week. This week's question is a super common question that I get asked all the time. It's probably from someone who's getting into Aston ownership for the first time, and it's a question about should I be getting into the seat of a 4.3 or a 4.7? This is a subject that we've covered in the past, talking about the differences between the car, talking about how the 4.7 is improved, evolved from the 4.3. We've also spoken about and showed that you can buy a car at the bottom end and lavish a load of money on it to evolve it, rejuvenate it and improve it at the same time. But this question comes from the person that wants to get in the seat of a very good, high quality A1 condition car. So this is going to be one owner. It's going to be around about 15,000 miles. So if we look at that 4.3 example and 4.7 example, we can make some comparisons. So here's a 2006 4.3 V8, one owner, and it's got 15,000 miles on the clock. I think a figure of 38 to 40 is about right for these cars at the moment. Sure, as you can tell by the picture of the interior, that you're going to open the door and you're going to get a smell of newness. It's going to have that factory leather smell. Seat bolsters aren't going to be worn. Interior isn't going to be scuffed and scratched. In all intents and purposes, this is going to feel like a brand new car when you open the door and sit in it. Now we can see a 4.7 with similar mileage, one owner. The very best example, 4.7 base model, it's going for 60k. So we've got our very best example 4.3 at 40k, our very best example 4.7 at 60k. So which one do you go for? If you buy that 40k at the top of its game 4.3 V8 Vantage, you're going to take it for a drive, and soon enough you're going to appraise that the engine is a bit lackluster. The suspension is quite crashy, yet there's some body roll. It's not as precise on tip in, turn in as you'd like. Clutch feels a bit wooden, and it all just needs speeding up a little bit. So if we take that 4.3 V8 Vantage and add exhaust manifolds, catalyst and an ECU remap, we retrofit Vantage S Bilstein suspension, and we put a lightweight flywheel and twin plate clutch in, then that package of works is going to come in at something like 13k. That takes your all up spend for an A1 4.3 V8 Vantage to about 53k. Now that 4.7 at 60k doesn't need any suspension upgrade, and the engine performance is already adequate at 4.7. The exhaust manifolds and the catalysts on the 4.3 as in all intents and purposes made the 4.3 the same as a 4.7. The clutch is still the single plate clutch on the 4.7, which is going to feel a bit wooden and not give you much feedback. So twin plate clutches these days retail at about 3.6, meaning that to get that car, get the 4.7 driving as you want it to, 60k plus the clutch puts you all up for around about £64,000. Now, apart from the odd dashboard difference, dials, knobs and buttons, we're going to take these two cars, which are both A1 at the top of their game, for a drive. We're in the 4.7 at the moment, and we'll benchmark this car, but then we'll get in the 4.3, and I'm sure we're going to feel that that car is more or less behaving dynamically exactly the same as the 4.7, meaning that with market prices as they are today, you can get that 4.3 at the top of its game, evolve it to equal the 4.7, and by my reckoning have 10k spare. Let's take the 4.7 on the loop, get used to it, and then we'll jump in the 4.3. Day in, day out, I drive loads of these Astons, all of the range, 4.3s, 4.7, DB9, Vanquish, Rapide, and I'm very much used to how all of them drive. Instantly tell that you're in a 4.7 or you're on Bilstein dampers, because we're doing about 40 mile an hour now, and there's no crashiness at all. All the bumps are nicely being taken up by the damper, not being jarred around. And as we take our first spirited turn in, it turns in with quite some precision and speed. These cars are just so predictable, don't really ever bite you. It's just a shame 4.3s don't handle like the 4.7s do. Just short shifting through the box, and this is one of the benefits of the 4.7. You really don't have to stretch the legs of the engine all the way up to the red line to make some decent progression. So on roads like that, stretching the 4.7 legs to the red line, crisp handling, that's nothing but totally enjoyable. That's the benefit of buying at the A1 upper end of each car's bracket. Not only do you get that level of newness when you open the door and immediately sit in the car, but for someone like me that drives these cars all the time, you can feel that the bushing on this car has got a level of newness to it, just in the way that it soaks up the bumps and turns in really fast and keeps a tight arc. When the bushes start to wear, change of direction gets a bit mushy and a bit slow, and you can almost feel the car crashing along on its bushes. So, hey presto, we're now in the 4.3. They're both one owner, both low mileage cars, but this 4.3 actually does feel a bit newer than that 4.7 that we were in. I mean, if you rewind the clock to when the 4.3 V8 Vantage first came out, if you were buying one of these in 2005, 2006, then you'd have had your name down on the waiting list for quite some time. There was an awful lot of hype about the DB9 and V8 Vantage when they first came out, and you'd have felt really special if you'd have been one of those original purchasers. I always find that one owner 4.3 cars are absolute head and shoulders condition above the rest of the model range, and that's because no doubt that level of excitement and care that the owner first had in that special time of 05 and 06, they've carried on throughout their entire ownership, meaning that 4.3 V8 Vantage one owner cars are always cherished. For that reason, and if you can get one like this one with just 20k on the clock, it really is a super special car. What we're going to go and do now is put this one through its paces, and we should feel the exact same rewarding electric driving experience that we just felt from the 4.7, because this car has been evolved with exhaust manifolds, catalysts, Bilstein dampers. It should feel exactly the same as the 4.7. If it does, then that's all been achieved for something like 10 to 15k cheaper than that very best example 4.7 that you could find. So instant impressions is that this 4.3 is definitely on Vantage S suspension. It's soaking up the bumps, it's comfortable, and it's lost all of the crashiness that a standard 4.3 has. Because of the 4.3 silencer, then when we modify with manifolds and catalysts, you just get a glorious, raw, American muscle car burble out the back of the exhaust, which a 4.7 back box doesn't achieve the same. Some people don't like that raw, bassy, powerful exhaust note, but if you do, then it really is enjoyable. Peak torque on the V8 engine is 5,000 RPM, and the 4.3 had 410 Newton meters, and the 4.7 was approximately 490 Newton meters. 4.3, 380 brake horsepower, 4.7, 420 brake horsepower. The manifolds and catalysts on the 4.3 has taken the engine power output to somewhere between 420 and 430, and the torque output a little lower because there is no replacement for displacement, to about 450 Newton meters. You can just about feel that the 4.7 has about 40 Newton meters extra in that build up to peak torque speed. But in terms of actual position on the tarmac, there's not a great deal of difference. And just going through the gears in this 4.3, comparing it to the 4.7, you certainly don't feel hard done by. I think I need to repeat that test about 1,000 times just to make sure of the result, but really I don't need to. That 4.3 drive was just as exhilarating, if not more, because of the exhaust note than the 4.7. Perhaps you'd choose this route because at the point of purchase you could only outlay the 40k to get yourself in the seat of the 4.3, but for your 40k you wanted the absolute very best in interior and exterior condition, one owner and low mileage. Obviously if you buy a 4.7 at the bottom of its game, you're not getting that, and perhaps to buy the 4.7 at that condition is going to take 60k, and that is just a stretch too far in one go at the start. And of course you don't have to modify in one go either. First year you could just enjoy the car standard, next year manifolds and catalysts, and then inevitably when those old dynamic stampers wear out, then retrofit the Bilstein, meaning that you don't have to outlay that whole chunk of 53k in one go to start with. So many of our customers have bought and then upgraded knowing that that sort of route was possible, and if you're one of those, I really hope this video has helped you. So I hope you like that question of the week, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.